The novel opens with a shocking event in the Grand Gallery of the Louvre Museum in Paris. The esteemed curator, Jacques Saunière, is pursued and fatally shot by an enigmatic albino monk named Silas. In his final moments, Saunière uses his own body and blood to create a macabre tableau. He arranges himself in the pose of Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, draws a pentacle on his stomach, and scrawls a cryptic message on the floor. This message includes a numerical sequence out of order, the Fibonacci sequence, and a final mysterious line, P.S. Find Robert Langdon. Robert Langdon, in Paris for a lecture, is awakened by the French police and summoned to the crime scene by the formidable Captain Bézu Fache of the Direction Centrale de la Police Judiciaire. Fache, a devout Catholic with an unyielding demeanor, believes Langdon is the prime suspect, misinterpreting the final line as Saunière's accusation. As Langdon analyzes the bizarre symbols at the scene, he is joined by Sophie Neveu, a gifted cryptologist from the police department. Unbeknownst to Fache, Sophie is also Jacques Saunière's estranged granddaughter. Sophie reveals to Langdon that he is in grave danger. Fache has already planted a tracking device on him and is building a case for his arrest. She also deciphers a hidden message in her grandfather's text meant only for her, which confirms Langdon's innocence and urges her to seek his help. What follows is a daring and ingenious escape from the Louvre, orchestrated by Sophie. They create a diversion, allowing them to slip away from the heavily guarded museum and begin their own investigation into Saunière's murder, realizing it is connected to a secret he dedicated his life to protecting. Part 2. The Trail of Anagrams and the Key to the Past. Saunière's clues lead them on an intellectual scavenger hunt through the Louvre. The first set of anagrams, "O Draconian Devil" and "O Lame Saint," are unscrambled by Langdon to reveal Leonardo da Vinci and the Mona Lisa. Behind the world's most famous painting, they find another message written in invisible ink, visible only under black light. This clue, a cryptic verse, directs them to another of Da Vinci's masterpieces, Madonna of the Rocks. Behind this second painting, they discover a strange, ornate key bearing a fleur-de-lis and the initials P.S. Sophie recognizes the symbol from a box her grandfather kept, confirming the key's significance. Langdon identifies the initials as belonging to the Priory of Sion, a clandestine European secret society whose members have reportedly included Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, and Victor Hugo. He explains that the Priory's sworn duty is to protect a monumental secret, the location of the Holy Grail. However, Langdon clarifies that the Grail is not a cup, but a collection of documents, accompanied by the sarcophagus of a specific historical figure, whose identity is the Church's most guarded secret. Meanwhile, the narrative introduces the antagonists. Silas, the monk, is a fanatical and self-flagellating member of Opus Dei, a conservative and controversial Catholic organization. He acts under the orders of a mysterious figure known only as the Teacher, who has promised to deliver the keystone, the map to the Holy Grail, to Bishop Manuel Aringarosa, the head of Opus Dei. Aringarosa, believing the Vatican is about to disavow his organization, seeks the Grail to gain immense power and leverage over the Church. Silas, following the Teacher's instructions, had murdered Saunière and the 3 other top leaders of the Priory of Sion in his ruthless pursuit of the keystone. Part 3. The Cryptex and the Grail Historian. The key leads Langdon and Sophie to a 24-hour branch of the Depository Bank of Zurich. Using the Fibonacci sequence from the crime scene as the account number, they gain access to Saunière's safety deposit box. Inside, they find a cryptex, a portable vault invented by Leonardo da Vinci. It is a marble cylinder with 5 rotating dials of letters, which must be aligned to spell a 5-letter password. If forced open, an internal vial of vinegar will break, dissolving the papyrus scroll inside and destroying the secret. Realizing they need an expert to help them decipher the puzzle of the cryptex, Langdon and Sophie seek refuge with Sir Lee Teabing, a wheelchair-bound British royal historian and Langdon's old friend. Teabing is a passionate, eccentric, and world-renowned authority on the Holy Grail. At his lavish estate, Chateau Villette, Teabing delivers the novel's central and most controversial thesis. He explains to a skeptical Sophie that the Holy Grail is not the chalice of Christ, but a woman, Mary Magdalene. He argues that the term San Grail, Holy Grail, is a corruption of sang real, meaning royal blood. According to his theory, Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute but the wife of Jesus Christ and a powerful figure from a royal bloodline. She was pregnant at the time of the crucifixion and fled to Gaul, modern-day France, where she gave birth to a daughter, Sarah. This child carried the bloodline of Christ, which eventually merged with the French Merovingian dynasty. The Priory of Sion was created to protect this royal bloodline and the sacred feminine, a concept of female divinity that Christianity, in its quest for patriarchal power, systematically suppressed. Teabing uses Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper as his primary evidence. He points out the figure to Jesus' right, traditionally identified as the Apostle John, has feminine features and is posed in a way that creates a V shape with Jesus, a symbol for the womb and the sacred feminine. Furthermore, the chalice itself is conspicuously absent from the table because, Teabing argues, Mary Magdalene is the chalice, the vessel that carried the royal blood of Christ. Their lecture is violently interrupted by the arrival of Silas, who has tracked them to the chateau. In the ensuing struggle, they manage to subdue the monk and take him captive. With the police closing in, Teabing, Langdon, Sophie, and their prisoner escape aboard Teabing's private jet, bound for London, where the next clue in the cryptex's riddle points. Part 4. The London Labyrinth and a Shocking Betrayal. Aboard the plane, the group solves the first cryptex's puzzle. The password is Sophia, a reference to Sophie's name and the Greek word for wisdom. Inside, they find not the final answer, but a smaller cryptex with a new, more complex riddle. This riddle directs them to London, specifically to a tomb where a knight a pope interred. Their first stop is the Temple Church, a historic site built by the Knights Templar, the military arm of the Priory of Sion, who were brutally exterminated by the Church in the 14th century for allegedly possessing the Grail secret. There, they fall into a trap set by the teacher. Teabing's butler, Rémy Legaludec, reveals himself as an accomplice and, in a staged kidnapping, takes Teabing hostage while freeing Silas. Abandoned and on the run, Langdon and Sophie decipher the true meaning of the riddle. The knight is Sir Isaac Newton, a former Grand Master of the Priory, and the Pope, who interred him, refers not to a religious figure but to the poet Alexander Pope, who wrote his epitaph. They race to Westminster Abbey to Newton's tomb, where they are confronted by the teacher himself. In the novel's most dramatic twist, the teacher is unmasked as Sir Leigh Teabing. His entire persona as a helpful academic was a facade. Teabing reveals his true motive. He believed the Priory of Sion, under Saunier's leadership, had grown too timid and had decided against revealing the Grail secret to the world as originally planned. Enraged by this, Teabing orchestrated the entire conspiracy. He used Bishop Aringarosa's desperation and Silas's fanaticism, feeding them false information to have them do his dirty work of eliminating the Priory's leaders. His goal was to find the Grail himself and unveil its truth in a moment of ultimate triumph, single-handedly correcting a 2,000-year-old historical injustice. Rémy and Silas were merely his pawns, both of whom he later betrays and eliminates to cover his tracks. At Westminster Abbey, with a gun pointed at Sophie, Teabing demands Langdon solve the final cryptex. The riddle involves an orb, a symbol connected to Newton's discovery of gravity, an apple. Langdon deciphers the password, apple. But in a moment of brilliance, he secretly removes the inner scroll before theatrically throwing the empty cryptex into the air. Teabing, desperate to save it, dives for the device, and in that moment, Captain Faish and the London police, who have finally been convinced of Langdon's innocence, arrive and arrest him. Part 5. Resolution at Rosslyn and the Final Revelation. The final clue from the cryptex leads Langdon and Sophie to Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland, a site long associated with Templar and Masonic lore. The chapel is a dizzying tapestry of pagan and Christian symbols. There, they meet the chapel's docent, who turns out to be Sophie's long-lost grandmother, and Sophie is reunited with her younger brother. The truth of Sophie's past is finally revealed. She is a direct descendant of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. Her family were members of the Merovingian line. Her parents died in a car accident that was actually an assassination attempt on their bloodline. Jacques Saunière, her grandfather, was in fact her guardian and the Grand Master of the Priory of Sion. He had faked her death to protect her from those who would harm her and raised her in secrecy. Her reunion with her family represents the continuation of the sacred bloodline. They learn that the Holy Grail is not physically buried at Rosslyn. The final verse was a metaphor. The true Grail is the story of Mary Magdalene and the living bloodline, which is now safe with Sophie and her family. The documents that prove this history have been protected and passed down through generations.